The Star and D'Amico Show is brought to you by cheapesttshirts.ca. If you're looking for quality gear without overpaying, shop cheapesttshirts.ca. Huge selection for men, women, and kids. Tees, hoodies, headwear, bags, and more. Proud Montreal business. Order today, ship today, delivery tomorrow. That's cheapesttshirts.ca. Local, fast, and affordable. Brought to you by instacustoms.com. Do you need custom gear from a local Montreal business? Instacustoms.com has you covered. Custom shirts, hoodies, hats, and more made your way. Fast turnaround, great quality, and proudly Montreal-based. Check out instacustoms.com. Brought to you by Cabletel. For trusted alarm systems in Quebec and Eastern Ontario, choose Cabletel. Over 20 years of expert installation and top-tier protection for homes and businesses. Check out Cabletel.com. Email them info@Cabletel.com. It's Cabletel. Peace of mind you can count on. Brought to you by Morella's Steakhouse. Looking for an unforgettable night out? Morella's Steakhouse on Highway 132. It's just 15 minutes from Montreal, serving up premium cuts and bold flavors, and no tax on your bill. Book your table tonight at morellassteakhouse.ca. Taste excellence tonight. Brought to you by Little Bear Pet Store. Give your pet the best with Little Bear. Online, littlebearonline.com. A family-owned business in Montreal for 30 years. Chuck, Evie, and their amazing staff. Top brands, great prices, and real care for your pets. Shop online or visit them on St. Catherine across from Westmount Square. Brought to you by McLean's Pub. Head over to McLean's Pub, 1210 Peel Street in the heart of downtown Montreal. Great food, cold drinks, and big games on all the screens. Classic pub grub and an unbeatable vibe. McLean's Pub, good times and great company. Welcome to the live presentation of the Star and D'Amico Show. There is Marco D'Amico. I am Sean Stars. The Star and D'Amico Empire, let's call it. The Star and D'Amico Empire is growing, my friends. YouTube subs, our audio podcast page, and of course now on TSN 690 once a week. Without a Montreal Canadiens conflict, you can find the Star and D'Amico Show coming to you live on TSN 690 on the good old-fashioned AM band. Mondays at 6 o'clock. And, of course, if there's a Habs conflict, it'll go the next day. But here we are this afternoon. Thanks for spending some of your lunch hour with us as we react to the Montreal Canadiens in, it might just be their game of the year at the Bell Center to get them to 14 wins in front of their home fans against the Minnesota Wild. Marco, granted, a team that had played the night before, that had thumped the Toronto Maple Leafs. But the big difference there, I watched that Leafs a Wild game on Amazon Prime. The Leafs came out hot to start that period just the way the Canadiens did, but it was the Canadiens who put the Minnesota Wild on defense for much of the game. We'll get into how they won it and as the Montreal Canadiens look ahead towards the Buffalo Sabres. But, Marco, you were in the building yesterday. How electrifying was that in front of the fans, considering Martin St. Louis got a new lineup and the Canadiens prevail thanks to Cole Caufield's 21st career game winner since he broke into the NHL in 2020-2021.
Yeah, you think about it, actually, when Cole Caufield scored yesterday, he is now 11th. Sorry, 11th.
There, I was about to say. Okay, good. You got it.
11th in NHL, in the entire NHL. During the moment he started his rookie season, he's 11th in game-winning goals.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, he missed 40 games in that first year. So, and then some, right? And so it's impressive to see where he's kind of come from and how clutch he is. I will say one really funny story, ladies and gentlemen, about Cole Caufield.
Yeah, let's go.
Everybody saw the Canadiens yesterday posting the tweet of him scoring, the video of him scoring, and then tag USA Hockey in the tweet.
Yep.
It went viral. Everybody was talking about it. So naturally, we're in the dressing room after the game, and colleague Arpan Basu goes to him. He's like, did you see the tweet of the Canadiens tagging USA Hockey on your goal? And Cole was like, no, I haven't seen anything. So I pulled out my phone and I showed him the tweet, and he just looks at my phone and goes, Jesus Christ. Oh. Kind of like backtrack on it and just be like, listen, I'm just happy we got the 2 points and everything was great. And, you know, it's a team we haven't beaten in 6 years, and I'm just happy about that. You turn around and go and ask Laine Hutson like 2 minutes later, and Laine Hutson's like, haha, that's funny. Completely different reactions. But it goes to show you how all business Cole Caufield is.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that with Minnesota Wild, with Bill Guerin being their general manager and in the building, you want to poke, I guess, in that situation, because you feel like a player like Caufield got snubbed in that call, and to a degree as well, Laine Hutson. But I think it was all class. He had every opportunity to dunk on Bill Guerin, and he didn't. So kudos to Cole Caufield, who was a pro on and off the ice last night.
I mean, the Canadiens played such a strong game through and through. It would have been so crushing had they not collected the full 2 points, considering from start to finish, they were the dominant team. We'll get into Jakob Dobes and his performance. He's on 15 wins this season, looking a little like, let's exaggerate here, looking a little like Dominic Hasek, making saves with his back to the shooter, keeping the Montreal Canadiens in it. But I want to talk about the superstar presence on the ice last night. I'm happy for the captain. Seems like the captain to me is getting a little criticized. I think people want a little bit more from 14. He was instrumental in setting up Cole Caufield's game. I love the way MSL broke it down with support. He talked about balance, right? Following the play, using your hockey IQ. There was Suzuki on the right side, who was behind him for support. There was Cole Caufield, and the dish and the finish with 15 seconds left to go. But, we spent some time talking, and have spent a lot of time talking about how special Laine Hutson is. Looked like a shortstop at one point when Minnesota tried to get the puck out of the end, and there he was, blocking it with his body like a good shortstop, keeping the ball in front of you at all times.
He's got a 100 save percentage.
Yeah, exactly. You'll take that, especially on this team. But I called him on a superstar trajectory today. You brought it up when you joined us on Habs Breakfast on TSN 690, and you put the comps up when we asked you about Quinn Hughes versus Laine Hutson. I mean, the fact that I wasn't aware of this at the time, I was after you pointed it out, obviously, but he's the 23rd overall leading scorer in the NHL. And then when you dissect it even further, Marco, he's 2 points back of the great Cale Makar. He's on 52 points after 50. I mean, this guy is on a superstar NHL trajectory, and that's just not Habs rose-colored glasses here.
No. And I think what's ironic, compared to last year, I mean, last year, understandably, he had more secondary assists than he did primary. But of his 30 assists that he has this season, most of them are primary, right? So It's not like he's just like getting the odd power play assist. He's impacting the game at even strength at such a rate that it's uplifting the Canadiens even when their power play isn't necessarily going. And I think that's where, like, all those points last night, if I'm not mistaken, were all even strength. So
yeah,
it really goes to show, like, he's starting to impact a game in so many other ways than just pure offense. You look at the goal that he scored, that came off, an overall good play from his pairing that he had with Jaden Struble in that moment. And then Demidov just eyes behind the back of his head, or, quick turn to the right and fake shot to the left and gets it over to Cole Caufield for the one-timer. Like, when did we see Cole Caufield one-timers last year? We didn't, but he's been working on it so hard because they can't keep him away from the rink. And so he continues to evolve. And I think this is where, if you do look at, the wording of Kent Hughes when it comes to talking about the players that he wants to build around, it's players that consistently improve and are always willing to improve and put in the work to improve. That's where I think we're at with a guy like Laine Hutson, because the talent was always there, but it was the effort. It was the fact that you basically have to cuff this guy to get him off the ice or to stop him from getting on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I think that when you factor that in and you look at the way that he's grown with the skills that he still has another level, in my opinion. And that is where the superstar track comes in, because you look at the best offensive defenseman out of the last 15, 20 years, even go Cap era in general, and he's right up there with them in terms of the best of that class.
This arguably, I've been watching the Montreal Canadiens for a long time, more or less having opinions on the Montreal Canadiens on the radio for more than 2 decades. And I say this without a sense of hyperbole. This is the most skilled Montreal Canadiens team I have ever watched. And yeah, there's always the extra passes on the power play. They're so skilled, and they love to make the fancy pass because they believe they can. And generally on the power play this season, they have been able to convert. But when you looked at the Hutson goal from Demidov, where was Hutson on that play? We can walk it back to where was Alex Carrier, right? And maybe the hottest touch on the Montreal Canadiens, including a stone cold post late in the third period. But where was he when he scored? The engagement, the involvement, the educated pinches from the Canadiens blue line. Martin St. Louis, I think, gave us a glimpse of this, Marco, in the preseason when he talked about how speed from the defensive side can be a weapon. I mean, it's more than a weapon. It's an asset. It's something that is so reliable for this team, isn't it?
I think the fact that defensemen activate with such regularity this season with the Montreal Canadiens is by no fluke in comparison to how successful they've been.
Right.
You look at Dobson, 9 goals. You look at Hutson, 9 goals. You combine Matheson, Hutson, and Dobson in terms of point getting, and they're right up there with the best defensive core in the league in terms of producing offense. So when you see that and you look at how they impact the game at even strength as well, not just simply offensively, but defensively, it allows for a better support in transition. It allows for a better support in possession maintenance in the offensive zone. And that's what allows the Canadiens to outwork and tire their opponents, as we saw. It's not by chance how long that presence was at the last minute of the game where they boxed in the Wild, who were coming off a back-to-back. Like, they're smelling blood, but that impulse to be active, to be aggressive, to come down the line a little bit and help out the forwards could be a little bit of risky play. But in that moment, it made sense. That's exactly what Hutson does. They take advantage of goal. And I feel like we're seeing that with regularity. When the Canadiens are successful, it's because their defensemen are coming in and pinching, not forcing the forwards to simply just come around and do the whole cycle game where the Canadiens will lose that more often than not. It's being able to come into that soft ice, take advantage of and then, relieve pressure from where they are on the circle, go back to the other circle and keep playing that game until they find the right shot.
Lots to get into today on your lunch hour covering the Montreal Canadiens here in the Star and D'Amico Show. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our march to 20,000 subscribers begins with the Star and D'Amico Army marching step by step towards 20,000. So thank you for those that have already subscribed to the channel. We've got daily content covering all things Montreal Canadiens as we take you to the Olympic break now with 7 games to go. And the team gets off to a great start with a 4-3, very important, a regulation time victory in a cross-conference game. I want to talk, obviously, about the Rasmus Andersson deal to Vegas. He's off the board. Kiefer Sherwood goes to the San Jose Sharks. There's a guy Marco and I have been talking about for most of the season. So there's another name off the board. We'll pick Marco's brain on, what's going to happen. Are the New York Rangers a viable target? They're at the bottom of the NHL's Eastern Conference. I saw our colleague Eric Engels talk about Will Cooley and a desired target for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, in all honesty, who wouldn't? There's our boy Ryerson. What's up, Ryerson? Thank you so much for spreading the gospel of the Star and D'Amico Show. We love you, brother. Thanks for being with us today on this Wednesday. But let's dig into Kirby Dach. His first game back since November 15th when he broke his foot. Played almost 17 minutes yesterday, a surprisingly high number for me. Blocked a shot there. You saw him wince as he went back to the bench. You're like, oh my gosh. But all is good. He had 2 shots on goal. I'm curious to get your impressions on how Dach looked next to Suzuki and Caufield last night.
I thought he did his part. Were there shifts where, maybe you saw a little bit of rust? Yes. But what I like from Kirby Dach is what that line is missing is another player to be able to come in with possession of the puck and retain possession down low. And I think that's what Kirby Dach brings a lot to that line. And it's what allowed that line to find its mojo throughout the game and have those lengthy presences in the offensive zone and push towards the net. This is what I really enjoy when you see Kirby Dach, because when you remove the pressures of playing center from Kirby Dach, he's a valuable top 9 winger in my honest opinion. He's a guy that has the IQ, has the vision, has the size, has the long reach. This is a guy that could be a possession monster along the wing. And that's exactly what we saw last night. And I think it gave a little bit more time and space to Nick Suzuki and Cole Caufield. And, not for naught, but I thought Caufield was a little bit more dangerous because of that. And when I spoke to Caufield after the game about it, he's like, yeah, I've been playing a long time with Kirby, and, we know where to find each other. I know what he can do. He's really strong along the puck. He's really strong down low. He's a guy that's going to be able to make some space, can be able to battle. And all I got to do is be open and be there to be able to support him once the puck is free and do my thing. So they know what each other, everyone has a role on that line that they know quite well, historically speaking. And I think because of that familiarity, especially when you have an Alex Texier that's out, it's a good option to have because he's a guy as well, when you remove him from the rigors of being a center, that could really go out and play his game.
Lots to talk here, and I already see it pop up in the comments a couple of times. This from Laine, talking about the NHL referees in terms of accountability for the missed calls, and there were missed calls, multiple missed calls. You can talk about Demidov getting tripped behind the net, no call. You could talk about the 2 phantom calls, obviously on Laine Hutson, very egregious. Both of them, in my opinion. At first, on Laine Hutson's second phantom call, I thought Brendan Gallagher was going to get the gate there. Forget who he ran hard into the corner boards, but that was ugly. That drew a crowd. But no, it was Laine Hutson who ended up serving his second minor of the game.
Yeah.
But what I could tell you about this, Marco, and I want to pick your brain on what options does the NHL have? How aggressive will the NHL be? Because I'll use the Matt Duchene infamous offside that was never called, that changed how the NHL goes about the review business. And then, you were allowed to challenge offsides. I mean, that was as egregious as it gets. And I hope the NHL doesn't get to the point where a phantom call like Foligno trips over, an imaginary blue line, and the team that gets the power play scores, and there's an elimination in the playoffs, just to go to an exaggerated degree, right?
No, I get it.
The review process, from my understanding, and Darren Dreger talked about this on the morning show today, it's vigorous. Like it or not, I believe him. And, when Stephen Walkom, the head of officiating in the NHL, they're going to have a conversation with Eric Furlat and his colleagues, and they're going to talk about, what did you see, break this down. And ultimately, the reward for referees, like it is for players, is playoff assignments. Players and teams want to make the playoffs. Referees want to be in the biggest games of their profession in their league. And calls like that, if they're repeated, and I don't pay attention to every Eric Furlat officiated game, you make bobo mistakes like that on the regular, you're not going to get playoff assignments. And this is an experienced referee. I can't get into his head. I have no idea what he saw. But Marco, if there's one thing I'd love to see is, I'd love to see these officials, the 4 of them, get together. I mean, obviously the play's on the freaking Jumbotron, like we can have why can't they simply have a conversation here? I mean, do you think ultimately the league has an appetite to kind of get ahead of this, or are they just going to be like they always are, very reactionary once the worst case scenario plays out?
Yeah. Well, the way that the current rule book is written out, there is no option for them to simply just like overturn. Like it happens sometimes where a player will be like, no, that wasn't that wasn't a penalty. Like, what are you doing? But at the same time, refs will call the penalty, and then when they get a good look at it, they'll go to a player and apologize and be like, yeah, maybe I messed up on that one. Which, I mean, humans make mistakes. Great. I understand that. But the game is too quick nowadays to be left simply open to interpretation or human eyes. And that's the way I see it. And so I don't think we have to go all the way off the deep end like they did with face-offs, with offsides, because as everybody remembers, offsides, you could just call offside all the time.
Yep.
And then they limited it to you can call an offside, but you lose your timeout. And then they complain about that. And then it became, you can call an offside challenge, but if you lose the challenge, there's a penalty against you. And I feel like that being able to do that on calls would make sense. My 2 cents. Expanding it, not simply just offside calls, but penalty calls, especially high sticking. The difference between high sticking, though, is because with high sticking, you can call a major, or you call a 4-minute and review it.
Right.
And then you could remove it entirely. Well, if you can do that for high sticking, you should be able to do that for any penalty whatsoever, in my honest opinion. And that's not just because it happened in Montreal. We've seen this happen across the league countless times. This isn't a Montreal epidemic. It's a league-wide epidemic. And it's impacting the flow of games. And especially as you get into the playoffs, well, I mean, playoffs is a little less problematic because they tend to put their whistles away a little bit more as you get deeper in. But I feel like, especially as you get in late in the season and the games are 4-point games, the divisional games, like, could you imagine if that would have happened tomorrow against Buffalo,
Exactly.
like, it would have been a meltdown entirely, especially with the way Buffalo's been playing of late, right? So you have to be able to have a failsafe. And right now the NHL is exposing themselves with the rules that they have to not have a failsafe in case of human error. And it's arrogant, in my opinion, from the NHL to assume that the refs are going to call it more often than not right. I think so. I think these are individuals that are very professional and that have been doing this for a long time, and kudos to them. And I tip my hat to their experience. But at the speed of this game, you cannot undervalue the risk for human error. And that, to me, especially in a game with millions of dollars on the line, I'm not talking about betting. I'm talking about like standing wise and making the playoffs and revenue. You have to be on the ball.
There's Marco D'Amico and Sean Starr. Thanks so much for being with us, spending some of your lunch hour. The afternoon following the Montreal Canadiens 4-3 regulation time victory over the Minnesota Wild. Jakob Dobes, Marco, you know, all he does is win, this young man. He's got 15 dubs now this season, right? Post a save percentage below 900. I can understand, I think, from a Canadiens fan perspective, you know, Montreal all over Minnesota, but the Wild are up 1-0. They have 2 shots on goal. You know, Tarasenko, lickety split on their first power play of the evening, buries it past Dobes. I'm curious about how you saw Dobes's game yesterday. Clearly, the kid made some timely stops down the stretch when he needed to. We talked about the Dominic Hasek-inspired save with his back to the shooter out of position. I mean, he's such a wild. He's fun to watch. He's a battler. But, man, this kid is a wild card, isn't he?
He's a goaltending coach's worst nightmare, and I'm here for it.
I like that.
I'm here for it. The chaos in his game is just so fun to watch just from up high, because you have, I guess you get you get like a bird's eye view of being able to watch him, the mannerisms, the way he plays. It's kind of hilarious. You know, in a playoff format, that may not work, especially when the games get tighter. Like those kinds of disbalances are going to be studied a little bit more directly. Like, I agree that the record looks nice. You know, obviously 15-5-3 is gorgeous. You want that if you're a goalie. But you know, I'm just going to add that, you know, those at the beginning of the season, I'll give it to him, especially that game against Detroit. But the thing that bothers me is they're not convincing wins. Like, you're 15-5-3, but you got a goals against average of 3.
Yeah.
And you're above a 900 save percentage. It means your team is bailing you out, because if you have a goals against of 3, that means that by minimum, the team has to score 4 goals on average for you to win your game. So yes, he's winning the games, and I applaud him because he's a battler, but let's not use that record to give him any kind of vindication here. Like, it's not like he's stealing those games. And I think that's being good enough, and having to expect the Canadiens to score 4 goals a game, especially down the stretch, something you're gonna have to watch for. So has he done well? Yes. You know, obviously yesterday, a couple of muffin goals, but in the third period, a couple of highlight reel saves. So they tend to balance out. What I would like to see constructively, without being critical of the player, what I would like to see is a little bit less theatrics and a little bit more calm in his technique. Will that come with age? We'll see. But the stylistic difference between him and Jacob Fowler could not be ever more dichotomous. It's just on one end and the other.
Yeah. You know, I like this comment here. On the flip side, is Habs need to outscore his mediocre stats. I mean, he's got 15 wins. But, you know, when you dig past the win-loss ratio for Jakob Dobes, I get where Happy Dabby Doo is coming from. And thanks for being with us. Thanks. We really appreciate your generosity this afternoon and your ongoing support of the show, everybody. But, you know, when you watch this team, whether, you know, it was the game against Ottawa on Saturday, the 6-5 victory there, how they managed to outscore the Minnesota Wild, who are missing, let's be honest, they were missing significant talent. Their entire second line not available for the Wild in that game, and playing again, traveling from Toronto to Montreal and their second game, blah, 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 blah. But, you know, when you watch this, that was game number 50, and the Canadiens remain a top 5 scoring team on goals for on average this year. But how confident are you that this is transferable once this team makes the playoffs in the spring? Is it transferable, this style, this goal production?
It's the third goal Yes.
Yeah,
Hutson's
sure.
goal, probably not. I think there's
Yeah.
a little bit more structure. You're going to have a defenseman blocking those passing lanes by the circle. Danault's first goal, I think so. Like, I felt like yesterday the Canadiens played more of a playoff style game than they ever have this season. How about that? I felt like
Yeah,
you were
5-on-5,
playing a team
they were
with,
great. Yeah.
yeah, 5-on-5. I felt like they owned the puck, they owned the tempo, they were going to the high danger areas. Right, you look at those. You look at Danault's goal, just batting a rebound out of the air, just going to the high danger areas. To me, like, there were good saves made on Minnesota's side. Like, you got to give them credit there. That game could have gotten away in a jiffy. And it's difficult to look at when you basically hang your goalie out to dry that way. I would simply say this. I think that for the Canadiens to transition well towards the playoffs, they seem to have the 5-on-5 well. When they're playing with their speed and they're playing through traffic, I think that that's transferable to a certain degree. Now, the problem is when that traffic is waiting for you, firmly with, elbows. That's where I'm kind of waiting, is when that physicality is going to come in, when the true box out defensive formations are going to come in. You're going to be playing tougher, stronger, and more educated on your own tactics style team, right? Because we all look at a calendar and we're like, playing this team, look at where they are in the standings. Preparation for a playoff series is a complete different beast. And when you have players that have been through the playoffs, that know how to adapt to other team systems and have a history of doing so on teams like, I don't know, I'll give you an example. Tampa Bay. You look at Carolina defensively. You look at a team like Washington that the Canadiens saw firsthand last year. Those are teams that are more easily prepared because of who they have on their team to adapt to the opposition and box them out. And I feel like that's where you have to pay attention, because that's where the Canadiens are going to have to, rise above if they want to go from playoff participation to winning rounds.
And listen, I mean, I'm just continually impressed by the Canadiens' compete level. 63 points. They've won 2 in a row again. What's interesting, too, which I saw yesterday, the Edmonton Oilers have yet to win more than 2 games in a row this season. They are the only team in the NHL. They had their 2-game winning streak come to an end yesterday. Just a bizarre stat for a team led by great players, obviously like Connor McDavid. But to the Canadiens' credit, the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are also on a 2-game winning streak, but they're also on a 14-game point streak. They're 13-0-1, and they have just
how many injuries?
Exactly. And Marco, it's a 3-point lead. I mean, I know it's just another point to how extreme parity exists in the Eastern Conference, but for a team that has points in 14 straight and they haven't pulled away essentially from Detroit or Montreal in the top 3 race for the Atlantic Division, I mean, it's full credit, especially to the youngest team in hockey, right? That has been so good all year, Marco, in not allowing the losing streaks to grow, where at least they don't leave a game with a point.
Yeah, and I'll go one step further. In the most competitive division in hockey right now is the Atlantic Division. Who would have said that at the beginning of the season?
Yeah.
Right? Like, absolutely ridiculous that the 5 of the 8 teams currently in a spot for the playoffs are Atlantic Division teams. Yeah. And the team that's first out of the playoff spot is another Atlantic Division team. Like, the Metropolitan is just absolutely being lambasted this year. And I think, to me, the Canadiens are getting into those divisional games now. You have Buffalo tomorrow, Boston on the weekend, right? Like, these are 4-point games. Yep. And we are mid-January. 4-point game rhetoric generally tends to happen after the All-Star break / Olympic break. Yep. We've been having these conversations for the last month. So it goes to show that although what the Canadiens have done is absolutely excellent, one bad week and they're in a wild card spot. Right? And so, like, that to me is why you never leave your foot off the gas. I also think the Olympic break is going to be incredibly fortuitous for them, because I can tell you that some of the players on this team are running out of steam quick.
I believe it.
And some injuries, as we've seen, some players playing through some stuff. But I would simply say that given the goaltending woes, given the injuries that they've had, and given the schedule and the lack of practice for a young team, I would say that this is an absolute W for Canadiens fans in terms of the season so far.
We'll see the Boston Bruins on Saturday night. The Bruins got thumped pretty handedly at the hands of the Dallas Stars. I want to talk about some trades. I wonder if Artemi Panarin and the Dallas Stars could be a hookup there with Sege on LTIR. They have the room, and we know the New York Rangers aren't. The Rangers and Panarin don't have a future together. I mean, they wrote that shit in stone, brother. So they ain't moving off that, right? And this is the last place Rangers here. Alexis Lafreniere, Will Cooley, we'll get into that. But internally, right? Internally, we referenced and spoke about Kirby Dach's return after missing a chunk of time. November 15th was his last game. And, he played almost 17 minutes, and we saw him on the first line. Alex Texier, who had a therapy day on the Monday, didn't suit up for game day Tuesday. We'll see what happens. I know the Canadiens skated at 11:30 today.
He practiced
today. So it was interesting to me that I get Juraj Slafkovsky as the messenger when these guys love to share the hot tub in the morning in a game day pregame soak. That Juraj looks at the lineup and he relays the messages. Arbar, you're out. Struble, you're in. Intercompetition, I think we can agree, is a very good thing for pro sports. If you want to play, you got to be your best, and you got to stack those shifts, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about Arber Xhekaj and the decision not to play him against the Minnesota Wild. Personally, based on how the Wild are structured, I don't have a big issue with that. And also, Marco, let's talk about Alex Texier and his role. If we play the hypothetical, and when the Habs host Buffalo on Thursday, in my mind, they got to find a new line for Alex Texier. Are you prepared to see Martin St. Louis roll with 77 next to Caufield and Suzuki Thursday against Buffalo?
I mean, there's two ways of looking at this. And I think this is where, guys in the comments, ladies and gentlemen, let me know what you think. But I have two minds of this. I would leave Kirby Dach on the top line. And the reason I would do that is because we know it works. We also know that Texier works. But I have more confidence that Texier would also work on the third line. I very much knows where I'm going with this. But I think a Texier, Danault, Anderson line would be an absolute train wreck upon the other team. Like, they wouldn't know it was coming. They just crash, bang, skill, tight end plays, shot. They wouldn't see it come like that. Those are three players that have a never-ending motor. And Texier, to me, has that, that ability to be both a skilled player but a grinder at the same time. So putting those three together, I think, would be ideal. Sliding down Gallagher to the fourth line, if necessary, maybe the stands, if Martin St. Louis sees it that way, is a possibility. Because I think at that point, then you'll have Evans, Baldzuk, and whoever they want to finish the fourth line with. So it's an interesting setup, but I feel like if you want three guys that are responsible, but could also produce offense and will have a clear identity on what it is that they're doing, which is, shut down / energy / intimidation. Well, at that point, you run with those three and you're better off in that regard. Whereas I feel like if you put Dach there, I feel like the only guy that's a real scoring threat is Josh Anderson. And I don't know that Josh Anderson is enough of a consistent scoring threat to be the goal producer on a line by himself in a top 9 situation. So if you slide down Texier, you're better off balanced there. Your top line's balanced because we know that the Dach combination with Caufield and Suzuki works, and don't touch the kid line. So I think there's proper 3-line balance at that point. And then we see what happens with Patrick Laine, and we see what happens if the Canadiens decide to make another forward acquisition. But until then, I think that's a pretty solid top 9.
So, I see a lot of people pointing out, and you guys are, reading my mind, because that's where I want to take the direction next. Personally, in my own opinion, I think Joe Veleno has the leg up, right? If we're talking Veleno versus Sammy Blais, to Marco's point about
who they would waive?
In terms of who Martin St. Louis is likely to keep going with, I would think Veleno, to me, would complement the fourth line in his role. I personally have liked Veleno's game as of late, and now what, you have 2 lefty guys there, and Phil Danault one and Veleno the other. But the other name we haven't talked about, I maybe you can shed some light on this. I don't know how close he is to returning, but here we are talking about line combinations and first line players. Don't touch the kid line, rounding out the third line. with Texier, fourth line guy. I think you know where I'm going now. Where's Patrick Laine? Where's Patrick Laine here? What's going on? Like second wave of the power play. Everyone keeps pointing. Canadiens need help on the second wave of the power play. They've seen enough of Brendan Gallagher getting 2 minutes on the second wave all season. Like, I mean, where's he going to play? I mean, the Canadiens score goals. Like, they score goals.
I
Goal
think
prevention isn't an area of strength, but
well, depends on what line. And I think that's where you may see the Canadiens kind of revert back and try to go like Gallagher, Evans, Anderson, and then third line try to go Texier, Philip Deneau, Patrick Laine, if that opens up the line for him, because Deneau would be able to cover defensively. Texier would be able to find him. He's got good vision, soft hands, quick hands in the slot. So they have the option to insert him and then make the fourth line more of the identity line if you want, and then use Phil Deneau whenever they need him, you know, in overtime and in other games. That's if it comes to the point where they have to insert him in the lineup. But the thing is that the moment that he becomes healthy, someone's got to go. I don't mean out of the lineup. I mean out of the 23-man roster. Someone's got to go. So this was where it becomes a very difficult situation. That's why, you know, nobody has the answer to this. I can't report to you that I know what the Canadiens are going to do. Anybody who does is lying because they don't know yet. They have to see what's happening. But we've talked about this before. You look at the fit of this team. You look at how they're building it. You look at the playoff salary cap. If the Canadiens don't add at the trade deadline, then there's no problem keeping Patrick Laine. There's none. But if the Canadiens do add, well, then things get a little bit, trickier, because inserting Patrick Laine into a playoff salary cap setting, it's only the 20 players that you dress that count. But if you insert him, well, that's $8.7 million towards $95.5 million of salary cap. It's complicated, basically complicated. So there's a lot of complication, but on the flip side as well, are you putting him in the best situation to be successful on your team? And I think that's where the problem will come. And
it's a problem.
And I will say one thing. Patrick Laine's wife put out an Instagram post yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Talking about the nervousness of waiting out to see what the fate of her husband would be leading up to trade deadline. So you know that even from his camp, there's an uncertainty as to whether or not he's going to be sticking around Montreal past the trade deadline.
What do you think?
I'm not saying that there are rumors happening.
No, but I get it.
But I think, and I've said this before, for the betterment of the player in terms of him being able to get a contract beyond this season, maybe it's worth retaining 50% of salary and trading him to a playoff team that has the cap space to be able to take him on. We've talked about the Carolina Hurricanes before. There are other teams that are going to be looking for middle six scoring, especially to give their second power play wave a boost. So you can play both sides here.
Can the Canadiens recover a second round pick?
No, what they didn't pay for it. They didn't pay a second round pick.
No, but I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, like we've seen in the past where the Canadiens get a guy off waivers, he blossoms in Montreal, and then they flip him at the deadline. And in the case of Laine, I'm wondering, you know, what they paid to get Phil Deneau with salary retention. Can the Canadiens get a pick back for Patrick Laine if they trade him to, I don't know, Carolina or wherever?
I can't speak to his value right now without seeing him play hockey.
Well, I think that, you know, that obviously that's very important, because how much do you believe in Patrick Laine's timeline as a Montreal Canadien? We've never seen him play at 100%. Is that fair?
So that's why I don't think there is a set decision yet. I think the Canadiens want to see what he looks like. They want to see how mobile he looks like in a game setting, because obviously having an abdominal injury throughout all of preseason and the beginning of the season affected his mobility. He didn't look very quick. But he played through it because it was a contract year. So it goes to show you how important the situation is for him. So, you know, being a little bit amenable to the human side of things when it comes to him, I think to myself, just, you know, what would you want in his situation? He likes Montreal, maybe not the best fit right now, but I feel like the Canadiens are going to give him a shot. And that's why I think it makes sense to put him on the third line, second power play wave, and see what's up. And then, you know, you have that time between when you draw him back in versus when Alex Newhook comes back after the trade deadline. You'll have a better sense of what you want to do. Does he fit? Does he not fit? Because then when Alex Newhook comes down and is ready to play, assuming no other injury, well, if you have Texier, Deneau, and Patrick Laine on your third line, who's going down to the fourth? Texier? right? Like, and so by extending Texier, there's also that element of like assurance in his case that he's going to be a player that they can play in a top 9 situation. Playing him on a fourth line would be an absolute luxury. And so I don't know if they go that route.
A little housekeeping here before we move on. Let's dive into the New York Rangers. Let's talk about options there. Let's get Marco's take on Kiefer Sherwood, now a San Jose Shark, Rasmus Anderson. I'd love to be a Vegas Golden Knights fan. I mean, they give up first round picks, they give up assets, but look at the players they get in return. And by the way, both of those guys go to their new teams without contracts in their pocket. But a little housekeeping, Marco. Things beyond our control prevented us from broadcasting live last weekend at Public House at McLean's at 1420 Peel Street, is Jamie wondering. And we have a new date, don't we, Marco, for our next public broadcast live at Public House at McLean's at 1420 Peel, don't we?
Yep, that'll be February 4th against the Winnipeg Jets. We'll be starting promptly an hour before the game. I'm pretty sure that's a 7:30 start, though. I just want to double check.
Is that a 7:30? Because I know they got a few left.
Because they're playing in it's a 7 o'clock start. Never mind. Yeah. So it starts at 6 on the 4th, and we will be there to watch the rest of the game with you guys, do some Q&A, and we'll see with McLean's if they want to do another trivia night, because that was definitely a lot of fun the last time around. But we'll be there, prizes to give out, gift cards to give out, some free drinks if McLean's is feeling happy that night. We'll definitely be able to take care of you guys. So anybody that wants to come and join, we should have a nice big crowd this time around. A lot of the people that were going to go on Saturday could not make it, are ready to go next week. So it's next Wednesday, or sorry, not next Wednesday, 2 Wednesdays from now on the 4th of February. And that'll be the last game for the Montreal Canadiens before the Olympic break. So last time you get to watch Canadiens hockey for about 3 weeks. We expect to see you guys there.
They've got one more 7:30 start, and that's Monday, February 2nd at Minnesota, as the march towards the Olympic break is on. 7 games to go. Very important for this team to, have a strong finish so they can enjoy their time. I don't know. Where are they going? Turks and Caicos? Where are they going? Atlantis in the Bahamas? I don't know. Mr. Niles here, like a lot of people, right? In bold letters, I want Will Cooley. From your lips to somebody's ears, Mr. Niles. I agree, but let's talk about the New York Rangers, Marco. And what direction are they going? How aggressive do you think Chris Drury and company in the front office there at MSG are going to be? Names like Artemi Panarin, names like Mika Zibanejad, who's having, a strong season. There's another veteran guy. Alexis Lafreniere's name thrown around. Will Cooley's very sought after, clearly, right? But I don't know about Will Cooley. You still need good young players if you're going to do a reset rebuild, don't you?
I think Will Cooley is probably the forward that they're least likely to trade.
Right.
And notwithstanding the very porous relationship between the New York Rangers and the Montreal Canadiens, to me, Panarin is not a fit on this team.
No.
He's a great player, fantastic player.
Absolutely. He's a beast in the playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, but, the Rangers are going to have to retain 50%. You're going to have to send a good contract their way. And do you really need another winger in this case, like in a short-term sell mode? Because he's not going to go for cheap. It'll be a first-round pick plus a good prospect at the minimum.
Yeah.
So
3 righty shots on the first line.
Well, that hasn't stopped the Canadiens. They have 3 righty shots right now.
That's right. That's fair. I agree. But adding to it, I would imagine they would want something different. But
exactly. If you're going to go out, you're going to go and get like a left shot bruiser. But I've suggested Lafreniere versus Owen Power 1-for-1 before.
Yeah.
I think that would be a perfect fit for both teams. Owen Power wants to be a number 1 defenseman elsewhere. He could settle to being number 2 behind Adam Fox, worst case, but that'll be a crazy pairing. And I think Lafreniere next to a guy like Tage Thompson would just light the world on fire. So I think, that could be the kind of thing, but I don't think Alexis Lafreniere is getting traded for a first-round pick, Kirby Dach, Jaden Struble, and your favorite prospect. Like, it's not happening. If they're trading Lafreniere, they're expecting some kind of, reciprocal young player coming back their way. So something to keep an eye out of. Bowen Byram is another one. I spoke about Owen Power, but Bowen Byram is potentially a player they can look at.
Wow.
They need to take some players, especially the older players. You brought up Mika Zibanejad, you brought up Artemi Panarin, Vincent Trocheck is probably the player that interests me the most. Although, again, I don't think that that's happening for Montreal, but a team like Carolina, a team like LA, a team like Minnesota, those are going to be teams that are going to be involved in talking to the Rangers about Trocheck. So a lot of fun to come out of New York, because it's always fun watching them rebuild. I mean, retool. I mean, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I think when it comes time to looking at the pieces they're going to give away, I don't think they're in a rush for a Lafreniere trade. I think that may be a summer thing if it happens. But Cooley and Braden Schneider,
Schneider,
Gabe Perreault, not happening. Not happening. And I think we can immediately forget that. Would Will Cooley be the perfect fit? Absolutely.
Yes, no doubt.
But I've very little chance Chris Drury trades Will Cooley to the team that his predecessor runs.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's that too. And further to that, reporting, right, as Kiefer Sherwood, there's a name we've talked about. Who is this guy? Is he a 10 to 15 goal scorer? Is he a 25 goal scorer? Reporting out there in the aftermath that did the Canadiens poke around? Maybe, not aggressively, I think is how I would classify it. And
they checked
apparently,
him.
Marco, from what I heard, like the ask, and you've brought this up before, the ask soured some people about, the Sherwood camp looking $5 million, looking for a $30 million type deal. It soured people and made them say, okay, good luck with that, but you're not getting it from us.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that there are so few free agents that are going to be available this summer that you have a guy like Kiefer Sherwood who is peaking, playing 17 minutes a game, which he will play nowhere else but Vancouver. He's not playing 17 minutes a game in maybe this season, but maybe not beyond this season. Will he play 17 minutes a game? He's got a hand injury anyway. He's only coming back after the Olympics. But I feel like it would take a team like San Jose to pay him that 5 times 5 because they don't have any big dollar amounts on the books. There's nothing ridiculous. And the contracts that they're going to have to give Celebrini and Will Smith will only kick in not 2026, 2027, but 2027, 2028. So they could afford to give him the $5 million because by that point, the cap will have gone up probably like another $15 million. So it doesn't matter to them, but it matters to contending teams. And I think that's why it took so long between his contract and the fact that the Vancouver Canucks were asking for a first-round pick plus for him, which to me is just wishful thinking on their end. But they've done some good deals in the past. I think getting a good pick, the 12th overall pick for JT Miller was a great trade. Then trading it to Pittsburgh for Marcus Pettersson, maybe not. But when they set a price, they generally get close to what they want. This was one of the first times they didn't.
You bring up JT Miller. There's a name being reported that the Rangers have no interest in moving JT Miller, considering they just got him. His former teammate, though, in Vancouver, his name's not going away. Reports emerging this week that if Vancouver moves Pettersson out of the West Coast, he's bound for the East Coast. I mean,
probably.
I mean, does a world exist where the Montreal Canadiens would be looking?
Hell no. Just with respect to Pettersson. I just don't, I think this is Montreal would have to give up Page and or Kapanen.
Right.
At minimum. And I just don't feel like at $11.6 million and him being on the downswing and having a full no movement clause, if you think because this is a guy that complained about the media pressure in Vancouver.
Oh my gosh.
If you think the media pressure in Vancouver is tough, try dealing with me on a regular basis.
Yeah.
No offense.
No offense.
I smile sometimes, but try dealing with the Montreal media on a regular basis. Like, that's not the same. It's a different beast. The magnifying glass is times 16 compared to Vancouver. And if that was difficult for him then during the whole JT Miller thing, I just don't know that would be the best fit for him personally. And from a stylistic perspective, I think he's an excellent hockey player. But I think what the Canadiens need more of now is not more of the high skill, like pure hands kind of play. I think they need more of the East-West kind of player with skill that'll be able to accommodate what they have. Like, it's great to have all these elite players, and he'll cost you a pretty penny, so you may lose one in the process. But I feel like the Canadiens are at a point where it's like, it's not like the Seagulls in Finding Nemo, whenever a really good player becomes available, he's mine, he's mine, he's mine. You don't have to do that anymore. You can be a little bit more picky. And I think for the Canadiens, and this is going to sound crazy to a few people, I think an Alex Tuch makes more sense for the Montreal Canadiens than an Elias Pettersson. Teams that can go for an Elias Pettersson, you look at a team like the Carolina Hurricanes, who were in on him last year before they ultimately decided on trading for Mikko Rantanen. You look at the Philadelphia Flyers, who have, arguably no top 6 centers coming up. They're not very high on Jet Luchenko right now. Jack Nesbitt looked like he's going to take a while too. So they don't have top 6 centers coming up. They just re-signed Christian Dvorak for that specific reason to a 5-year contract, even though he's not really, on a championship caliber team. He's not a top 6 center. So I think Philly is a team to watch for in that regard, and Detroit. Detroit has a lot of pieces that Vancouver likes, dating back to their conversations with Quinn Hughes. I keep an eye on Detroit because Detroit, they have their top center right now in Dylan Larkin, signed to a sweetheart deal. They have a boatload of cap space. I think the last time I saw, they had $13 million. They have pieces that they can trade in terms of young assets that they've drafted. You look at, Marco Kasper, Nate Danielson, and I can keep going on in terms of the young forwards, Axel Sandin-Pellikka on defense. There are players that they can trade. So that could happen. And I think that's why I see them coming over more to the East, because there's more fluidity in the East, but there's also more clarity in the East in terms of needs. There's a lot of teams in the West that still haven't picked a lane.
Staying on the West Coast for a second, insider trading on TSN, the insiders expanded on the Calgary Flames and their leading point getter, Nazem Kadri, 9 goals and 34 points through 49 games this season. He's 35 years old. He's a $7 million cap hit. He's got 3 years left on his current deal. To me, like, as we talk about, all these players, some fans looking at Panarin last week, 2 weeks ago, is, Blake Coleman out of Calgary. Nazem Kadri, the Canadiens poking around. I think any general manager worth their salt is calling, right? Just to see. You gauge your interest. But to me, the common denominator amongst all these names, they seem to me to be finishing players, finishing pieces to a puzzle that you're trying to complete, right? And I don't think the Canadiens are there. I'm more and more inclined to believe, here we are live on January 21st, that, Marco, the biggest move the Canadiens are going to make is going to be Michael Hage when Michigan's season comes to an end. I mean, they're just not in a position for a finishing type of player to round out, right? Or are they good enough to maybe take a flyer on somebody like that, and that makes them on paper more of a contending team than the one we cover today?
The Canadiens are not going to rush the process. So right off the bat, that's the reason why they didn't offer 2 second-round picks. They could have. That's the reason they didn't offer 2 second-round picks for Kiefer Sherwood.
Right.
Because at what cost, as Kent Hughes has said. They're more than willing to be patient, to wait for the right opportunity to strike, the same way they did with Dobson, right? Just that player becomes available, situation is ripe, and you jump in, right? So I could see how that would work. And I think that, their cap structure allows them to be a little flexible in that regard, looking into the future. What I would go out to say is that if a certain player that they've coveted suddenly becomes available and he's a can't miss player, then maybe they have a different conversation. Maybe at that point they decide to pull the trigger on something that many would deem aggressive. But they're not going to be doing it to get marginally better. These are clear, identifiable, can't miss upgrades, right? I felt like when they traded for Danault, it was a clear, identifiable upgrade at center, where they absolutely needed a guy that they could trust to be able to take left side draws and take a little bit of weight off of Jake Evans and Nick Suzuki. And that's exactly what Phil Danault's done. And seeing how much centers go for on this market, a 2nd-round pick is not that much to pay for, considering you have him under control even for next year. And he's starting to find a scoring touch now. Like, he's starting to get his points. He's starting to show his value, and he's upping his game way more than what we were seeing in LA. So with that said, if the Canadiens see a power forward type that they can lock in long term that makes sense for them on a cap structure and from an acquisition cost, they'll go for it. But the boring answer is until that player becomes available, until that price point is met, they ain't moving.
Yeah. Let's take some questions from the audience. Should Montreal target other teams' prospects that may be sizable, gritty type players who have the potential for higher skill? And I wonder, like, if I follow up on that question, right? Like Tyler Thorpe, Hayden Papanikis, Florian Jacki, where do we project these guys to be? And I guess tie that into the question about, with those three guys, do the Montreal Canadiens need to be targeting other air quote gritty players that are property of other clubs in the league?
So the problem with going after prospects, right, is the teams that generally own those prospects are rebuilding teams.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you going to give in return? Right? How do you go and get that gritty forward player without sacrificing, a top end defensive prospect,
right,
or a center prospect? And it ain't going to be, Owen Beck. With respect, it ain't going to be Owen Beck, or it ain't going to be, you're not going to be getting a top flight player for Philip Meshar, for example. Like you're going to have to give a big name. You're going to have to give a Hage. You're going to have to give a Jarofsky. You're going to have to give an Engstrom. You're going to have to give a Reinbacher. It depends on those kinds of acquisition costs. Where I would say the Canadiens are better off is that I think they're past the point of acquiring prospects and hoping that it works out. Look at what's going on. Like the reason why we're talking about going to get a gritty player for the top six is because things are not working out with Zachary Bolduc.
Full stop. Yeah.
And that was going after a team's young player that fits the bill. And he was billed as a physical score, like shoot first, left shot kind of player, which, on paper checked all the boxes, but chemistry wise hasn't been able to develop any chemistry with any line that he's been on. So there's a little bit of a risk there. Whereas older players generally have had to go through this struggle, have found better ways and able to create chemistry with players and integrate themselves. So you look more for those kinds of players in their mid 20s that are able to fill those. So that's why I think the Canadiens are done with the, I guess, reclamation projects or hope style, like home run looks. And they're going to be more looking for players that are about to enter their prime or are in their prime that fit the bill and are going to be able to fit it for many, many years to come.
The march to 20,000 subscribers on the Star and D'Amico show is on in a big way. Thanks to everybody. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, take care of that business right now. Jamie Haywood.
We're missing 17 subscribers to get to 13,000. That's nuts.
Let's go. I thought we were closer than that. What about Nick Schmaltz, asks Jamie Haywood, versatile forward, free agent next year?
Well, the way that he's playing, it's going to cost you a first and a top prospect.
Right.
Like a lot of people will point out the players that others may find available. I don't necessarily see the fit with Schmaltz. I think that he's going to hit market regardless. Like he couldn't come to terms with Utah on a contract, and they're generally not a cheap club. Like they give out pretty big deals when they need to. I think that's the guy that's going to be betting on himself. And I feel like if you're going to be trading for him, more often than not, you're going to be trading for a pure rental. Do you want to give up a first round pick plus Jarofsky or an Engstrom for 3 months of Schmaltz, knowing that you're not necessarily a cup contender? Like right. This is where I really want to disassociate the rental market with the trade market. The Canadiens, in my opinion, are in hockey trade territory. They're not in rental territory yet. When they get to rental territory, it's because they're dominant in every way. They're in the top 3 in the Atlantic right now, but that can change in a week. They have a lot of uncertainty in terms of their goaltending. Defensive structure is sometimes on, sometimes off. So they don't have the kind of assurances that you would need to go out and just throw a second round pick at a third line guy for like a playoff run. I don't think they're there yet. And when they get there, that's when Ken Hughes said he's going to have fun with it. But he himself admitted, we're not there yet. We're still looking to put in puzzle pieces that are going to be able to help us for the future.
I love the way you put it there. It reminds me of Gennaro Gattuso, though. Sometimes good, sometimes shit. Let's get to Zolak. What do you guys think about Kyle Dubas being in attendance at the Habs game at the Bell Center last night?
Absolutely by chance. He was at the Blackhawks game the night before to watch Jonathan Toews come back to Chicago.
Yeah.
He came to the Bell Center, of course, Team Canada GM as well, to look at some of their on-call players, right? So you have to factor in that there are some players that are on call watching Nick Suzuki play, but then there's Mike Matheson and Noah Dobson that are on a short list as well. So you have to factor those guys in. It's a stop off and going off. And again, like it's when it comes to Pittsburgh, you know, I've seen Kyle Dubas at the Bell Center at least 5 times this year.
Yeah.
So I don't think it changes anything, especially knowing that he was at another game an hour and a half away by plane just the night before.
Joey Gauthier wants to know, is there a chance that the Canadiens are going to buy out Brendan Gallagher this summer? Yikes.
That is not something that I could speak to, because first of all, it's way too early. You have to see where they're going with this. You have to see, you know, does Gallagher's play improve, drop off, fall off a cliff? Like there's so many things that can happen. Does he get injured? Does he, like there are so many factors in this. The one constant is at this point, he's well under the value of his contract, like by at least a 75% marker. And are the Canadiens desperate enough for the roster spot that he takes up and the cap space that he uses to not only buy out his contract and sever, what is it, a 15, 16-year relationship, but also factor in that not the buyout would save them about $3.5 million next season, but it would cost them $2 million the season after as well, right? Because you buy out a player, the cap stays split over 2 seasons, and if there's any signing bonus, that just gets tacked on to that year. So I think he'd count for like 3.8 next year, and then 2 point something the year after. So there is a consequence to doing that beyond the person himself. Will they buy him out? I don't know. Is it retain 50% and trade him so he's not, the buyout is not going to impact them the year after? There are many ways to go about this. They'll have a conversation. They're professionals about it. That's way above my pay grade. But I say, let's see how the season plays out before we have those conversations.
There's another player, right? He's got a full NMC, right? Brendan Gallagher
cannot be waived. Cannot be waived.
Exactly. And just to your point, right? Welcome to the membership, Jamie. We appreciate that. Thank you so much for being part of our community. We love you, buddy. Hockey is very much, I hate that I have to say this because I know we all know it. It's just it's an old school sport, man. And I think Marco brings up a key point about the relationship, what Brendan Gallagher has meant to this organization. Sure. I just don't see the buyout,
I'll give you a direct example. Everybody right now, what is your opinion of Chris Drury as a general manager? Write it in the comments. No,
what's
write
that?
in the comments. Everybody, what's your opinion of Chris Drury as the general manager of the New York Rangers? First comment says trash. Amazing.
Capital letters. Not good.
Jesus. Not trash. Good. Bad at the moment.
Bad at the moment.
Bad. And I think a lot of that comes from
if he trades for the Habs, I love horrible, ugly.
Yeah. Well, Jesus Christ. Okay.
Garbage.
I created a fire. What I meant, the reasoning behind that is his reputation is not good at the moment because of how he's run his team.
Yeah.
Personally, and from an asset management perspective.
Yeah.
Waiving Barclay Goodrow to get around his no trade clause.
Yeah.
Is a DICK move. Waiving or threatening to waive Jacob Trouba so that you could force a trade to Anaheim is a DICK move. All right? You don't see, like, for example, New Jersey. New Jersey's hands are completely tied because of all the NTCs they have, all the no trade clause that they have.
Yeah.
They didn't threaten to waive Dougie Hamilton or Andre Palat. You don't do that. It affects your reputation to players.
Agreed.
And now the Rangers that have always been a team that players want to play for. It's why Panarin signed there in the first place. That's why Adam Fox forced his way there. And other players in the past with the NCAA rules. So you've killed that attractiveness. So you don't want to do that. You don't want to be too hasty with Gallagher, because other players across the league are going to notice that the moment you fall off, oh, they're going to throw you away like trash. No, you have to do it. You have to do it with class. You have to do it with respect to the player.
Yep.
And so
out
that's
of the
why
public
I say,
eye for the most part too, you know?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But you do that, later. So that's why I say there is a way to do this. And if you don't want to ruin the culture and the impression that people have of Montreal outside of Montreal right now, you take this, step by step in the summer, and you see where everything's at.
100%. And that'll about do it for us. Mr. Niles, again, in capital letters, he wants everybody. I want Ridley Gregg screaming from the top of Mount Royal today.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I don't think Steve Stais necessarily has an appetite to trade with Montreal just yet.
No kidding. Yeah, let's see.
Or Michael Andlauer.
Let's get Ottawa a little bit more competitive. As much as I dislike the Senators.
Well, watch out. Watch out. James Reimer, 2 wins.
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, I know.
Here we go. They're going on a run.
They're picking up points, but they're not making up any ground. It's so frustrating.
Well, I think that goes back to the conversation we've been having about the Atlantic Division and how ridiculously deep it is. The Atlantic Division is insane. I mean, a bunch of teams lost over the last 2 days, and the Canadiens barely made any ground. They have like a 3-point lead on some of them, and that's it. So
like we talked about, the Lightning are 13-0-1 in their last 14. They have a 14-game point streak. They're not going anywhere. They haven't pulled away. They're no Max Verstappen pulling away from the field, and everyone's like 25 seconds behind the leader here.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I think when you look at the way that a lot of those teams are rebuilding teams, and a lot of those teams are teams that were competitive, that are still trying to remain competitive. So it's like everybody's kind of meeting at the top now for the first time in what's probably been a decade. Yeah. And it's just hyper competitive. You would assume that the worst team in the Atlantic would probably be the worst team in the league. Yeah. But no, not even close. Not even close. I think the worst team in the Atlantic is 10th in the NHL standings right now. So it just goes to show you how deep this division is. And it speaks to, how when you go on a bad week or a couple of bad weeks, that could be the season in a division like this.
Games of note tonight on Wednesday. 7:00, Detroit plays at Toronto tonight. The Flyers are at Utah. Penguins and Calgary meet up at 9:30. Also at 9:30 is the New York Islanders at Seattle. And then the one team that is winless in 2026, the Vancouver Canucks, hosting the Washington Capitals. The Capitals haven't been great either as of late. I think they got something like 3 wins in their last 10. So that's the out-of-town scoreboard on Wednesday, as the Montreal Canadiens sit firmly in 3rd spot in the NHL's Atlantic Division. Game number 50 resulted in a Montreal Canadiens, a 4-3 regulation time win. Ivan Demidov with his 10th multi-point game of the year. He's on pace for plus 70 points. Laine Hutson, 52 points after 50 games, and Cole Caufield scores the 25th goal of his season. And what did I just see? News out of USA Hockey, Laine Hutson not to call up Jackson Lacombe for Seth Jones, as the Americans are dealing with injuries ahead of the Olympics.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, this is going to get a whole lot of comments, and I get it. But for the role that Seth Jones played, Jackson Lacombe makes the most amount of sense. Is the better fit, just because special teams, capable of playing right, defensive system. He's not going to be a guy that's going to blow you away offensively. They already have guys for that. They're just looking for the big shutdown kind of style defenseman that could keep up, against the best in the world. And I think Lacombe fits that. But I think given what happened yesterday, it's kind of a little ironic that Laine Hutson, who is second in scoring for defensemen and the highest scoring American defenseman in the NHL, is still not given a bone.
Well, how about that? Just a little extra juice. Let's end on this. A little extra juice. They're playing Bill Guerin. He's general manager of the Wild. Cole Caufield, Laine Hutson, Kirill Kaprizov in the building, Ivan Demidov. I don't think it's a coincidence. I choose not to believe it anyway. That it's a coincidence that those 3 guys had massive performances with a little extra juice, a little extra motivation,
Well, Demidov was definitely fired up to play Kaprizov, because that's a guy he studied for a very, very long time. He told us as much. He's like, listen, this is a guy I've loved watching since I was a kid, and to be able to play against him fired me up. It was a challenge, and he looked like the better of the 2 on the ice last night. And then when it comes to Cole Caufield, he's like, well, you know who we're playing. And obviously there's a little bit of motivation, but I was also really motivated because we haven't beat them since I've joined this team. And even prior to, they haven't beat him since Cole Caufield was drafted.
Dude, 2019. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, exactly. Before Caufield was drafted, which is nuts.
Yeah.
So yeah, being able to beat them, now beating them in Minnesota, because the last time they beat Minnesota in Minnesota, PK Subban got a hat trick in 2013.
That was the hat trick. I knew it. Okay, yes, that's right.
So that'll be what, Monday? That'll be on Monday.
Monday, 7:30.
Hold on to your socks, everybody.
Yeah. Hey, what was that? I saw, what was that? Russian prospects in the building? Demidov?
So Quebec major junior prospects in general. So you had Will Lascelles, you had Xavier Villeneuve, who is expected to go first round as well. Igor Shilov, also expected to go first round, plays for the Victoriaville Tigers.
Yep.
And so they do this every year where they have the Quebec major junior prospects. And they were just chilling. And obviously the Raf Doucet, who is the QMJHL communications guy, after Demidov had finished the scrum, pulled Demidov. He's like, hey, we have a Russian player that's going to probably go in the first round that plays in the queue. That'd love to meet you. And Demidov was like, yep, no, sure, no problem. Hey,
cool.
And it was hilarious watching the joy on this young Russian's face meeting Demidov. It was really, really, it was the same face that Demidov made when he met Andrei Markov, if I could describe it.
Wow.
It was really nice. It was very classy of Demidov. And again, Joe goes to speak to his character. He was already in street clothes, did a scrum, and then took about 5 minutes to talk to this young Russian compatriot who is playing in the queue and is set to be a pretty early, I'd say, a first 20 picks in this draft if he continues playing.
It's funny too, looked good in his nice turtleneck, suited him. Turtleneck doesn't suit everybody. It suited Demidov yesterday. And I'm just blown away, man. Like he seems like such a high IQ guy. The fact that he speaks English as well as he does with, a limited footprint in North America, in Quebec, in this country, at his age, and how he handles the media and how he handles the crowd. I mean, to me, he's got such a high intellect, in my opinion, both on and off the ice. That's how he comes across. I'm blown away by his English. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, he took the time to really kind of dive into that by staying here this summer and obviously working on it while he was in Russia. But I think with Demidov, to be honest with you, I think the reason why it works in Montreal is because I think there is a level of mutual respect.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like, no one's going to trap him. It's always generally, like, the Canadians don't generally bring out Demidov after a loss. Wink, wink. But at the same time, when they do, it's always fair assessment. And I think that's the key. As long as there's like no gotcha moment, like we used to see back in the day. I think that like even yesterday with Cole Caufield, when it came to the tweet from the Canadiens, that could have been a gotcha moment where we could have gotten him to say something ridiculous that would have been a headliner. But it's more about like joking with the human and just having fun with them. And I think the players appreciate that in the media, and so they reciprocate, and so it's quite healthy when we're able to talk to players and they know that, they could be a little bit more open.
The ghosts from the forum have finally arrived at the Bell Center, tripping opponents' players now. Yeah, and it cost the Canadiens.
I love this.
The Canadiens.
I love this. That's so funny.
Marcus Foligno at the blue line. Good grief.
I want Pierre Dagenet. I
want Pierre Dagenet. I've got a great
I was talking to his son yesterday.
Oh, yeah?
Maddox, who is also set to be in the draft this year. It was the first overall pick in the queue 2 years ago. So nice, bright kid. Should probably go in the early to middle rounds.
All right, brother.
Yeah, Pierre Dagenet is still around.
Still doing his thing. Big fan. He was a big fan of the white belt, which person I'm not listen, I'm no GQ there, but just not a fan of the white belt, But that's just me.
The early 2000s was a different time. Okay,
it was. You're fair. That's a fair comment. That's a fair and accurate comment, I might add. Yeah. All right.
I had the white belt and white shoes.
We got greedy with the time, but man, it just flies. It flies. Thank you, everybody, for being so active in the chat today, for liking and subscribing to our video. Thank you for the new members. Great to see everybody. Shout out. Lots of shout outs here to do. Ryerson, thank you so much. Habby Dabby Doo has been a member of the channel for 9 months. Mr. Niles, outstanding 5-star performance, our first star today. Tristan is a new member to the show. Jamie Haywood, new member to the show. Welcome everybody to the community. We love having you, and we wouldn't be here without you guys. So I just want to make that clear. All right, brother.
Always a pleasure, guys. Thank you so much. We'll be probably hitting 13K by tomorrow. So a huge thank you to you guys. We're basically 10 away, which is insane to consider where we started. We'll be back tomorrow with some great content. And of course, after Thursday's game on Friday, we'll have a live again at noon. So we hope to be able to catch you guys then.
That's right. Bueno, thank you so much, Marco. I got tongue-tied there for a second.
Buongiorno.
I had something on my mind. But anyways, we'll leave you there. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. We've got fresh content on the channel tomorrow. Members get to see it first. And as Marco alluded to, we'll be here live Friday at noon in the aftermath of the Montreal Canadiens running it up to 3 in a row when they beat the Buffalo Sabres. There you go. All right, Marco, have a good day. We'll see you later.
Have a good day, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.